Welcome to Bi-Monthly Bull, the show where we say we to sound like a big news organization, but in reality, we can't afford to pay for a team, and I am the only person who works here. My name's Lewis Spears, and I make fuck all. Roll the expensive intro. In our first story tonight, BuzzFeed won the annual Webby Award for Best News App, which came as a complete surprise to all of the other contestants who had no idea that BuzzFeed was actually considered news. Nevertheless, let's take a look at some of the incredible journalism that helped BuzzFeed take out the top prize. Here's a good article. Britney Spears has been taking photos of her boyfriend basically naked, and the photos will make you wet and horny. This one was written by a man called Matt Stupera, who either must be an expert on what makes women wet and horny or has a very serious penis infection. You might want to get that dick checked, Matt, because I don't know if you know, but if you get a boner looking at someone else's boyfriend, it's not supposed to leak. In entertainment news now, Jay-Z released his 13th album exclusively on Tidal. Unfortunately for Jay-Z, he could put The Cure to Cancer on Tidal, and we still wouldn't download his fucking app. Last month, a staple of Australian education, Healthy Harold, briefly had their funding cut by the government. Healthy Harold is an awesome mobile education program that provides the young kids with dental, drug, and alcohol education by using a giraffe puppet called Healthy Harold. It's basically the only time that anyone should be happy to see strangers loading school kids into the back of a van. Unfortunately for Healthy Harold, the government tried to cut most of his funding, which forced them into a massive business restructure. These days, Healthy Harold is using his connections with schools and knowledge of drugs to sell dope to kids. He now goes by the name Heroin Harold.
What's up, kids? It's your pal, Heroin Harold, and I'm here to teach you how to shoot up. But kids, always remember, if you shoot up, you better pay up. Heroin Harold wouldn't want to have to break your legs like the last kid. Give me my fucking money, kid. I got friends in jail. I ain't scared to go back.
And now for a quick update on World War III, otherwise known as the fight for women's equality. Well, you know, women who live in the first world, because women who live in poor countries don't own smartphones. Therefore, feminist websites can't clickbait them into reading articles for ad revenue, so they don't really matter. The Australian government have set up something called a nudge unit, which is an official body of behavioural scientists set up to gently guide the population and adjust our behaviour without us noticing. It's a bit like date rape, except, you know, the whole population is getting fucked by someone they don't know. Recently, the Nudge Unit began a study to eliminate discrimination against women and boost their employment within the workplace. They worked with businesses who were hiring and made them use a method called blind recruitment. Basically, this removes all names, genders, and races from job applications, forcing the business to judge people purely by merit and not by how difficult their name is to say. The unit believed doing so would make women just as likely as men to be selected for a job interview because there was no way to discriminate against them. Unfortunately though, the study proved the exact opposite. By de-identifying candidates, women were actually less likely to be offered a job interview. Not only that, but when you did identify candidates, men were actually less likely to get a job interview and women had a better chance. But, you know, that's just the classic patriarchy, isn't it? The only way you can prove that it exists is when nobody is doing a comprehensive case study. Last weekend, Melbourne hosted one of the biggest comic conventions in Australia. And by that, I mean it's one of two. We only have 2 comic conventions. So it's not that hard to be the best when there's no one to compete with. That's why Kim Jong-un is North Korea's best golfer, because anyone with the balls to compete with him will quickly have them removed. Anyway, I usually go to Oz Comic Con every year, so this time I thought I would send my top reporter to let you guys know what the nerds are up to. I'm here at Oz Comic Con, which is one of the biggest comic conventions that Australia has. I come here every year. I thought I would give you guys a tour and show you what the nerds are up to. Over there's a guy in a dinosaur costume who's about to die of heat stroke. I love Comic Cons because they remind me of my primary school discos, because it smells like Lynx and nobody's getting laid. Obviously we can see that the Flash Really does come in a flash. So this is where everyone lines up to get their autograph signed by the famous guests. I was going to come here and make fun of the famous guests, but I have no idea who the fuck any of them are. Here we've got nerd fights where people pay $30 for a foam sword that they break in 2 minutes. It's a very competitive sport. Here we have the cosplay is not consent sign, because for some reason people need an entire sign to tell them not to grab Wonder Woman by the pussy. So here's the main attraction of Oz Comic Con. It's where you can sit on a dirty beanbag and not talk to anybody around you. It's really worth the $37. So I'm here with Simon. Who are you dressed up as today, Simon?
Inspector Gadget.
That's beautiful. So I'm going to ask you a couple of rapid fire questions. So they're really simple questions. If you just give me the first answer that pops into your head, and we'll see how many you can get. All right, you ready?
Right.
All right, so who's Batman's psychic?
Robin.
What planet is Superman from?
Krypton.
How do you make a girl come? Incorrect. The answer was stimulate her clitoris. But you got a great costume, mate. Which was your character?
Mine's Mercury.
Mercury. You had to think about that. And what's your character?
Jupiter.
Oh, that's awesome. So, and Jacob, how deep in the friend zone are you currently?
One's my sister and one's my sister's friend, so...
So pretty fucking deep. That's pretty, yeah.
And I find it kind of funny. I find it kind of
That was Oz Comic Con. I've been hanging out with the nerds for a couple hours now. I'm going to go home and wash my hands. A whole bunch of dudes in dresses watching me film this. How you going, boys? You guys look beautiful. For Blind Monthly Bull, I'm Lewis Spears. Back to you, Lewis. Thanks, Lewis. And now on to our final story of tonight. Cardinal George Pell has officially been charged with historical sexual abuse by the Australian Federal Police.
Today, Victoria Police have charged Cardinal George Pell with historical sexual assault offences. Cardinal Pell is facing multiple charges in respect to historic sexual offences, and there are multiple complainants relating to those charges.
Cardinal Pell responded to the sexual abuse charges by issuing a statement that said, "I am just like any other Australian. I'm entitled to a fair go." Well, unfortunately for you, George, unlike any other Australian, you may have fucked a couple of kids, so we're gonna have to check that one out. Why is it that whenever an Australian celebrity gets accused of rape, they start dropping all of these old Australian slogans that nobody has ever heard before? Like Robert Hughes, the star of Hey Dad, when he was accused of raping a 13-year-old girl, he came out and said that he wanted a fair dinkum trial. Robert, nobody talks like that. But the craziest thing is, this seems to work on us. It's like Australians see somebody else say, "G'day, mate," and we go, nah, he couldn't fuck kids. True blue Australians don't fuck kids. Yeah, really? Tell that to Rolf Harris. Anyway, because this seems to work so well, I'd like to announce a new product I've come up with. It's inspired by Cardinal George Pell. It's called the Fair Go Handbook for Australian Rapists. Oh, g'day, Cobber. Are you a famous Aussie bloke? And have you fucked a couple of kids? Well, don't worry, mate, because in Australia, the more slang you use, the more pedophilia you can get away with. And the Fair Go Handbook is chock-a-block full of true blue Aussie jargon. Carry one of these around and you might not get charged for 50 years, even if you've been hanging out with convicted pedophiles your whole life. Isn't that right, George Pell? A hooroo, fair dinkum, put another shrimp on the barbie. Good on you, Georgie. That'll keep you safe for another 10 years. Well, that's the end of the episode, guys. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Lewis Spears. This one was a lot of fun. I'll put out another episode in 2 weeks. If you miss me between now and then, I've also got a podcast that I put out every Sunday. It's got its own YouTube channel, or you can check it out on iTunes. So yeah, that's the end of the episode. Thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, share this shit around, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.